She's a
The Combat Cast, Episode 15, featuring Toa Henare.
And we are live. Hello and welcome to the Combat Cast, episode number 15. Today I am joined with a very special guest, the one, the only, Mr. Erroneous. No, that's his IG plug. He's Henare, aka Aaron, from Warrior Wrestling and from a few other places. But my man here has joining me today and he's going to talk us through his journey. So I'd like to welcome Aaron to the show.
What's up? Good to be on here. I'm a big fan of you, you know that.
Yes, vice versa, vice versa.
Yes.
My man. So to get things started, guys, I would like to ask Aaron, how did your journey in martial arts begin? And more specifically, wrestling.
Wrestling?
Yeah. Well, wrestling's a martial art, right? So.
Well, obviously growing up as a kid, everyone likes watching WWE, WCW, and that's what I wanted to be since I was like 3-4 years old, watching it with my cousins. From there, obviously, there's not really much opportunity in New Zealand, so where do you go if you can't get pro wrestling? Amateur wrestling. So I started freestyle Greco-Roman and submission wrestling. Mm-hmm. That's where I first got a real hold about it. And then from there, just training with different people, going to different gyms. I met up with a guy called Fale, Bad Luck Fale, so this big senpai, Tongan giant. And he's the one that took me over to Japan. So training with him got me training full time.
So pause there 1 second. How old were you when you first went to Japan?
Oh no, this was I was 22. First time I got to Japan. Right. So it took a long time to actually get there. I started training when I was 14, 15 at Dilworth College Wrestling.
Okay,
so
cool.
There's probably a lot of boys watching this at Dilworth College.
Yeah.
But they run the biggest wrestling program in New Zealand in terms of like Olympic style. So I was training that from 14, 15 to about 22 before I went to Japan.
Right. And did you compete in amateur wrestling?
Yeah. So I was a freestyle Greco-Roman and submission wrestling New Zealand champion.
Right.
But for Greco, it was only junior. I was only junior champion for Greco, just to get that right.
Yeah. So for those that aren't familiar with wrestling, in terms of those two, so you've got Olympic style and you've got Greco-Roman. Yeah. What's the key difference between the two?
So freestyle is you're allowed to attack upper body and lower body. You're allowed to attack the arms, the head. Mm-hmm. Greco-Roman, it's above the hips. Okay. So you're not allowed to grab the legs. You're not allowed to throw them from the legs. You're not allowed to kick them out from beneath.
I see.
So it's a lot more. Greco's usually the more stronger, bigger framed guys that you see. I like both styles. I think Greco is more effective in a physical situation. Right. Just because you're more up close and personal. With freestyle, you're not going to be able to chop and change and drop to your knee on the concrete as much. So
true.
Greco, you see a lot of Greco and MMA when they're pushed up against the cage. Yeah. When they're trying to get for leverage positions. Right. With the wrestlers, you sort of get shorter, stockier. So as opposed to your Muay Thai, you get a lot of long, lean guys.
Yeah,
Greco's a lot
more compact.
Yeah. And if anyone knows about him, Alexander.
So let's just touch on that a little bit. Yeah. So what's the advantage of being more stocky and compact in wrestling?
Well, I think lower center of gravity.
Yeah.
So it's harder to throw you.
Right.
So I always love when I come up against a taller guy, because I'm quite sure for my weight, I'm 105. When I come up against a taller guy, I'm like, yes. Yeah. My hips are a lot lower than his. All I need to be is tight, and I can lift him. Just that's the main thing is leverage. I mean, it's just physics, bro.
Yeah, and, totally. So it's more of a center of gravity thing.
Yeah. This is. If you're taking away the experience factor. Obviously, if I get a tall guy that's an Olympic champion, he's going to kill me.
It's still going to be tough. Yeah. But just still going to be a long guy in the office.
Yeah. But that's all you think about Daniel Cormier.
Yeah.
He's a shorter, he's a Greco-Roman guy, but he throws guys around real easy.
He ragdolls you.
Yeah. And he fights, he should be fighting light to middleweight.
If you see his fight against Francis Ngannou, he just ragdolled him.
Josh Barnett as well.
Yeah.
It's just
that was Stipe. My bad.
Stipe.
Stipe
Yeah.
Ngannou, not
But he's got that
not
real
Daniel
nice
Cormier.
high crotch. So he's a Greco guy, but he pulls out these real.
Stipe?
Cormier.
Cormier.
So
What
high
about
crotch.
Stipe? What kind of wrestling would he
I'm
implement?
not sure what. I haven't been around since he's been big.
Right, okay.
So I haven't really watched.
Okay, all right. All good.
But I think he's a NCAA Division 1.
Okay.
So there's different levels. So NCAA Division 1 is the top wrestling and collegiate wrestling in America.
Yeah.
But Cormier is the next level above that. He's Olympic level.
Right.
So I think he was an Olympic alternate
Right.
for the actual
Yeah.
World Olympics. So that's even another step above NCAA. So
Wow.
NCAA is the guys like John Jones, Brock Lesnar's another guy up there. But around the world, so in Iran, they'd have a different sort of category for wrestling. Those are the big, Russia, Iran, and America, like the big wrestling countries.
Right. Interesting. Because you'd see, I remember when I was growing up, I'd see quite a few boys here from Iran that had a wrestling background, and they were massive, stacked out beasts.
How Thailanders with Muay Thai, how
Yeah.
New Zealanders with rugby, Iranians are with wrestling. It's their
Wow.
national sport. It's
Amazing.
their main thing. My favorite athlete in the whole world, Reza Yazdani. He's a 96 kilogram wrestler, freestyle wrestler. So I don't know. They're like next level. They treat it like life and death.
So for you as a fan of wrestling, what would be your favorite one to watch?
Like Olympic wrestling?
Or just any type of wrestling?
I don't really
your
like
favorite?
watching pro wrestling that much, but my favorite to watch is Greco-Roman.
Greco-Roman.
I always throw Alexander Karelin at people. So he's a giant Russian dude. He's a politician now, but he's famous for the Karelin lift, and it's just he wraps his arms around you, squeezes as hard as he can, and he throws you. Doesn't matter how big you are, you're going to go over his head and land on your neck. You'd love him if you.
Yeah.
Carolyn he's a legend. I actually want to get posters of Carolyn up at the gym. So. Russian guy, everybody look him up.
Let's go back to you now. So you got taken over to Japan.
Yeah.
And that was where your journey began. What was it like when you first got there? What was your pathway through to where you are now when you first arrived there?
So I trained with Fale when he was starting his dojo in New Zealand. And he sat me down just like you're talking to me now. He sat me down, he's like, what's your goals? And I told him, I want to be a New Zealand champ. But he knew I was sort of like bluffing. He was like, tell me your real goals. So he thought I was like downplaying myself. And then from there he was like, if you want to go pro, I could give you an opportunity to do that. So that was at the start of 2014. So the whole of 2014, I trained with Fale so that I could do a tryout for New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Right.
I've been watching them since I was in high school. So it was like, in terms of pure wrestling, like grappling style, they're the best in the world.
Right.
So train. I did the tryout, did really well, like stood up. What really got them was I did a haka. So at the tryout, they say appeal, something appeal.
Wow.
And you have to show them why do you want it? Why should we give it to you? And I just ripped out like the biggest haka I've ever ripped out, like cut my chest, cut my legs. They couldn't, and I remember the senpais just sitting there going,
okay,
good, like approval, just nodding in approval.
Wow.
So I got the call back from them and I joined. I was actually on my way to go work for WWE. I was legit in Florida. And the next day I was going to go to the center, but Fale called me. He's like, hey bro, you've got your spot, but they want you here right now. So like one night I had like a few hours to decide.
You had like an ultimatum between
Yes,
the two pathways.
so it was like one of those points in your life where you're just like, okay, I got this quest, that quest goes that way, this quest goes that way, but it's up to me which pathway I'm going to choose. So I chose Japan just because I like the more high intensity sport. Like we're talking, this is combat cast. I like the more combat route. So I wasn't so much a fan of like storylines and drama. I just wanted pure competitive sport is what I was after.
Right,
so.
I got you. So looking back, you don't regret your decision?
No, I've always been on this path. Like I've always wanted it. I've always been like, I loved wrestling, but I also love competition as well.
Yep.
Like, and a lot of the New Japan guys, your fans will probably know Pride.
Yeah.
So Pride and New Japan, so they were sort of like the wrestlers from New Japan were fighting on Pride.
Wow.
MMA. They fought guys like Emelianenko and Krokop and stuff. Those guys.
Wow.
They were throwing them together. But that's what I really like.
There's quite like a hybrid in terms of like synergy and things
Yeah.
like that, and with the promotions and stuff.
Yeah, definitely, and like it's real. It's still combat based. It's still like it was. I told Caps last night. It was Inoki, who's the guy that started my company, and Ali. they had the first modern MMA match in history. But people don't know that. Do you know about that?
No, I didn't know that.
Muhammad Ali fought Antonio Inoki. So world boxing champ fought the world wrestling champ. And they had a fight. There was like weird rules because it was the first MMA match that's ever happened. And so it was a little bit weird. Inoki was just kicking him for the whole round. And if Ali got one punch on him, he would have been
Was
dead.
it just one round?
No, I think it was like 5 rounds or so.
Oh, wow.
But they declared it a draw. Not because somebody lost. Like, I think if Inoki got a hold of Ali, or if Ali landed one punch, either side could have lost.
Such as the dynamic
of
MMA,
yeah. But it was so weird because it was the first sort of time this has been like put on. So even the crowd, but the crowd was going nuts.
So how big is Inoki?
Oh, he's like he's a politician now.
Right.
Back in the day, he was like the Japanese hero.
Right.
But he's travelled. So how Hulk Hogan is in the West.
Right.
Inoki's more famous than that in the East.
Wow, that's amazing.
And he's in terms of his politics, he has the only free pass to go from between Japan and North Korea.
Oh, wow.
So the biggest wrestling match that's ever happened in North Korea. I think there was a crowd of 120,000 people.
Shit.
And Inoki was the one that sorted that out with WCW. So that's a whole nother kettle of fish.
Yeah, totally.
Just the extent of power that this guy has.
Let's bring things back to you again. So you got your contract, you took the opportunity. How did things kind of like catapult for you from there?
It wasn't really a catapult. If you know anything about Japanese culture,
course,
there's no such thing as a catapult.
How did things grind their way up to where they are
it's all
now?
about the grinding. It's all about the incremental progression, which I know you're all about. You post about all the time, and I love that. That's something probably Thai and Japanese culture as well. But I was 2.5 years in the dojo. So dojo is like academy, dormitory style. You live there, you sleep there, you eat there, you train there. So it's pretty much like a hotel next to a living room, next to a kitchen, next to a gym. So all of those, and it's Inoki's old house. He like donated it to the company. You're waking up, you're doing the cooking, you're doing the cleaning, you're doing the training. You finish your training, shower, you make the food for all of the seniors. So all the guys that have done all the work before you, you're helping them out. So we got the chanko. I don't know if you know the sumo bowl.
Yeah.
It's like real famous in Japan. It's like a real like high delicacy meal. But we learn how to cook it, give it to all the senpais, and then in return they train us. They like teach us how to wrestle. They teach us like judo, jiu-jitsu, sumo. We even do like a little bit of sumo drills as well.
Wow.
So it's a real hardcore life. Like it's
so you did that for 2 years?
Yeah, 2.5 years.
And would you go and compete as well, or was it just pure training?
No, so we do, once you debut, you're what's called a young lion. So young lion's like apprentice. Apprentice is the closest thing in English.
Yeah. What do they call it in Japan?
Dojo-se.
Dojo-se.
So dojo student.
Right.
But like the level, until you debut, you're a renshu-se, which is just a practicing student.
Right.
So you're not a wrestler yet. When you're a young lion, you're not a wrestler yet. Once you've graduated from everything, once you've done all the training and they think you're good enough, then you can graduate. And then you could be a wrestler. And that took me 2.5 years.
And you can be a young lion.
So young lion when you debut.
Right.
And then you become a wrestler after you finish the young lion.
Okay.
So it's like a trial.
Okay.
It's all about testing.
Interesting.
Most people quit. Most people can't get through it.
After they get to the young lion phase, or even before that?
Even before that.
Oh,
so it's hard. The training's hard. I took 1,000 squats, 200 push-ups, 150 push-ups, sit-ups, neck bridging.
Yeah.
And you're doing this from 10 to 2 every single day. It's like a little bit weird. It's sort of like the shock that I got when I trained in Thailand with you guys. No, I don't know with you, but like the way you guys. It was shock.
That high volume.
Yeah.
It's kind of like mental fortitude training, isn't it?
Yes, 100%. It's more mental than physical training.
But I think it gives you, like, in life, an edge when you go through those phases, because mentally it shows you just how many barriers we set ourselves and how much we're actually physically capable of.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's a saying I forgot, but you're only working at like 20% capacity or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I get what you mean.
But when you know how
when you
to
feel
unlock,
like you're about to quit, you still have 40% left in the tank.
Yeah. See?
That's David Goggins.
Oh, see, I don't even. I think you've talked about him before. Yeah. But that is exactly what you feel. Like I thought, oh man, I couldn't get through this, and my body couldn't get through it. I snapped my Achilles 3 years ago, 2017, as I was a young lion.
Yeah.
So so we did all the training during the day, and then I cooled down too much, and then had a match at night. Match on TV.
Right.
Live TV, first match.
Shit.
So the match was a celebration for one of my senpais 20th year anniversary. So he's been wrestling for 20 years. And he is famous for snapping his Achilles.
So you snap yours.
So the first match on his celebratory card,
fashion.
I took one step, snap, bullet shot. Sounded like a snap. Like I thought the board underneath the ring had snapped. And then I was like, oh, but I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel anything. So I tried to stand up. I was like, fell over. I'm like, what's wrong? Something was wrong. But live TV, and then I realized, oh man, something's wrong. I can't move. I like tried to slap him in the face, but I fell onto my face. And then my opponent knew something was up. So he wasn't like beating me too much. He was like, look. Referee noticed something was up, called the match off. I got stretchered out. I was out for 9 months, 5 weeks in hospital. So.
And how many matches in were you when this happened?
In my career?
Yeah.
This would have been a
Quite
few hundred. Yeah.
Wow.
But
so at this point, you already had a bit of a following and a name and things like that.
I was still a young lion, but I had traveled around
300
the world.
matches in, I was still a young lion.
So I was still like,
That's crazy, eh?
I had wrestled in New Zealand, I had wrestled in the UK, Ireland,
Right.
I went to America, even before all of this stuff. But all of that 8 years of independence, they call it, doesn't measure up to 1 month in Japan at that at that level, at that intensity. And it'd be sort of similar for WWE as well, or UFC, like the top tier. Like
Yeah.
no amount of small training can prepare you for that level.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no comparison really.
I get what you mean. Yeah. There's a big step up in
Yeah,
competition.
yeah.
And just intensity and overall like professionalism
I
that
mean,
you have to be
in
able
terms
to
of
handle it.
independence as well, you're only having matches like once every month, or like the MMA fighters here once every 3 months or 6 months or so.
Yeah.
In Japan, it's like every day, up to 5 days a week.
Right.
So
So the volume of
Yeah.
workload is a lot higher.
and that's the hard thing, and that's what
competition.
all the 1,000 squats every day teaches you. So you saw it, you're gonna give up, you're gonna give up, you're gonna give up, you're gonna give up. No, okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, in Western sports science, as we get closer to a fight or a competition, we start to taper things off.
Yeah.
In Thailand, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
You get to that like 2 days out from the fight, they're working you like an absolute dog. You're
Yeah.
going all out, you're not holding back, they're pushing you to breaking point, and you're 2 days out from the fight.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, like, I'm fighting in 2 days, right? But it's just like that mental toughness that
Yes.
they're trying to grind into you and drill into you.
And I think they do it to prepare you in a way, like for tours. So like the next day and the next day and the next day, because if they bring you on and you're 5 days into a 20-day tour, you want to quit.
Yeah.
Like they've just lost all their money by bringing you in, sort
True.
of thing.
So they need to grind it up. Where do you see the sport of pro wrestling in terms of its evolution in the world today?
With especially with UFC so popular right now, so I see it as like a cycle. So back in the day, boxing was the huge thing.
Yeah.
So everyone liked it. Now it's moved to more UFC.
Yeah.
But even before boxing was big, wrestling was the thing to go. So like I just see the cycle of coming and going. Like when we were younger, WWF was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
But now it's sort of like tapered off because they've gone too dramatic.
Right.
But I think it's going to come back around. But in terms of wrestling itself, taking a step back to the more real competitive side, like not brawling, but like more competitive sport aspect rather than drama. I think that's what's going to be better. And I think that's what my company, New Japan, I think we're the leaders. So in terms of wrestling, for wrestling's sake, I think we're number one in the world. Just like we're talking about one FC compared to UFC,
Yeah.
when they have like the pure Muay Thai, the strikers and stuff. I think that's, in the world, skill-wise, I think it's more pure.
So you think that the wrestling that you're doing in Japan, from just a pure skills perspective, is more pure to the sport of wrestling
Yeah.
and competition as opposed to like WWE or
Yeah,
other?
it's like we work more closely with like jiu-jitsu guys, catch wrestling guys, Olympic wrestling guys as well, rather than just a lot of WWE guys are just ex-NFL players that got injured and couldn't do NFL anymore, lost their contracts. So, but even though like the big awesome athletes, I'm not taking away anything about their athletic ability, but in terms of wrestling, I love
Just from like
wrestling.
a spectator's point of view looking in.
I just love it. I'm a wrestler's wrestler, bro. Been in
Okay.
love with it my whole life. So.
The next question that I have is, how do you see wrestling has impacted mixed martial arts or like organizations like the UFC and things like that? Like what kind of role do you think MMA has played in the development of those sports?
I think it's just as big, if not bigger, than jiu-jitsu. Like the the effect that jiu-jitsu has had. Right now, I think it's moving more towards striking.
Yep.
But when it first started, I think, like I said about the Inoki Ali match, it was the wrestling companies that started promoting these sorts of events. And then they got, like, back in the day, the pure sports, it was all the wrestlers that were dominating. So when it was like Ken Shamrock,
Exactly,
mentioned
great
before.
example, yeah.
In Japan, we had Pancrase and Pride.
Yeah.
So Pancrase was all led by catch wrestlers as well. Sakuraba, he's a catch wrestler. He actually wrestled for New Japan as well, the same company I'm for. He beat all the Gracies.
I've seen his fights on YouTube and
He's
stuff.
got the big double wrist lock.
Yeah.
But that's old school catch wrestling. So you notice he doesn't really like dropping to his back as much. Catch wrestling, it's illegal to go back to your back.
Right.
So, but in MMA, modern MMA, guard pulling is like the usual thing.
Yep.
It's like normal.
Yep.
But for a catch wrestler, you're not allowed to drop to your back. So that's why you find yourself in all these weird positions. And I think, statistically, I think wrestlers have the highest chance of becoming champions.
But yeah, I've definitely seen a trend, and I think everyone will agree with that, that having wrestling as a foundation has led people to that top echelon of the sport of mixed martial arts.
Even in like a street perspective, like it dictates where the fight is.
Yeah.
Obviously, every fight starts on the feet. I'm not taking away anything from the strikers. You know, I love the Thai guys, the kickboxing guys. But so you catch one kick, you could dictate that it goes to the ground now.
Yeah.
And you could. Wrestling's about retaining the dominant position.
Yeah.
To me, a dominant position is being on top, like you said.
Yep.
But to a jiu-jitsu guy, a dominant position is also being on the ground, underneath. I
being
don't like
on the
it
ground in
personally.
general, really,
I don't like it personally for an applicable situation. But in terms of MMA, in terms of UFC, in terms of one, I think wrestling really dominates.
So if we're just going, so you kind of dived into it a little bit there. If we're just going into like a self-defense perspective, that's kind of something that we talked about before. You know, like wrestling, like you just said there, allows you to dictate where the fight or the altercation ends up, right? Whereas like BJJ, you know, you don't always want to be on your back on the ground, especially if there's like more than one person that you're trying to defend against. You know, like that could be really bad for you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think the ethos of jiu-jitsu is to get to a position where you can strike. So in jiu-jitsu competition, I think they score the mount and the back mount as higher than other things. It might have changed.
No, they do.
But I think it was Danaher. I'm pretty sure he's a Kiwi dude, John Danaher.
I'm not too sure.
He's a bullet, but he was explaining like in jiu-jitsu, you want the position so you could be able to strike.
Yeah.
So the back mount, obviously that's the most effective place you could strike from people, which is what wrestling doesn't take into account striking at all. So it's all about just taking down, and the dominant position is retaining them. So like whether you're on the street, you're keeping someone down for the police to come get you, I think that's effective. But if you're wanting to beat this guy up, I mean, some jiu-jitsu positions are the best. I think all are applicable in different situations. If we're talking about pure martial arts on the street, Krav Maga is going to kill anyone. Eyes, throat, mouth hook. So
that stuff's just ruthless, isn't it? Though, you know.
But it's all dependent. Like anything's just case by case dependent.
Yeah, it's all relative to the situation. Whether you're like desperately trying to survive or, you know, it's just something else.
In New Zealand, I found nobody. Like the average New Zealander knows nothing about wrestling. So if someone tries to step you out in town, 9 times out of 10, if you just go back to wrestling, you're going to beat them.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about your style, because you have a unique kind of component that you've added into your wrestling persona per se, but also kind of embodies a little bit about who you are because it falls in line with your own individual passions. So let's talk a little bit about that.
I'm a big Muay Thai fan. So I always have been since I was a kid. That's where I first saw you, was in a stadium. You weren't fighting, but they played your video at the stadium that I went to watch.
Cool.
But I mean, I loved I don't know, it's just something, I don't know how to explain it. It's like that intangible energy that comes up. I went to Thailand a few times. Like the first time I went, I'm like, oh man, I want to train. So I did like a few camps in Patong, and then Bangkok, and then Pattaya, and then back to Bangkok. So it was like heaps of different things. I'm not trying to be a pro fighter or anything. I'm just trying to learn all these techniques and the training styles. But nobody in the world really, in pro wrestling at least, works any Muay Thai into their offense. So I thought, oh man, this is something I like. It's something nobody else is doing, something that'll set me apart, and it's effective as well. So like just things that you guys do, like I would never have thought of, like jumping elbows and stuff. But I'm trying to like flesh it out. That's why I'm trying. Richie, I've been training with Richie Hardcore. Shout out to the
Shout out to Richie. Yeah, boy.
Just like I say, I'm not trying to be a Muay Thai pro. But he has asked me to fight amateur a few times this year, but I'm under contract, so I would love to. But
Okay. What motivated you to start Warrior Wrestling? So that's, for those who don't know, that's your wrestling school.
Yeah, it's mainly wrestling.
What motivated
academy.
you to start that?
It's more that there's no real avenues for like freestyle Greco and submission wrestling as well as pro wrestling in New Zealand. Follow the guy that took me to Japan. He's got his own dojo, that's specializing in pro wrestling. But there's nobody that mixes those other aspects
Components
to
of
it.
wrestling.
And I think it's real important to know actual techniques, applicable techniques, the holds and the footing as well, coordination. I think it's close to me. It's what's motivated me to get off the street. It's what saved my life, I guess. But giving people that opportunity rather than doing what I did, trying to travel the world just to get a contract. I failed maybe three times, I'd say. I'm not embarrassed to say that. I got rejected twice by WWE, once by New Japan, and then in the end they both wanted me. In the end. But it's just about that. Like, keep going.
Yeah.
But
That's really the universe asking you how badly do you want it.
I mean, it's like anything. If you want it more than you want to breathe, you'll be successful. That sort of thing.
Then you'll be successful.
Yeah, but giving them that opportunity so they don't have to struggle as much as I did just to get there.
Yeah.
But and also, like, I love wrestling. I love teaching wrestling.
Yeah.
We got a few jiu-jitsu guys from Tukaha that come in.
Oh, cool.
So I'm like, they're real iffy about teaching leg locks, but in catch wrestling, leg locks are like the main thing. So I don't know if you've heard of what a Boston crab is.
No, I haven't.
It's like if you're on your back and your legs are up like a jiu-jitsu guy, you hook around the Achilles and then you turn and sit.
Wow.
So you turn their whole body and sit on them.
Wow.
So that's like a real like catch wrestling 101 move
That's
that
like
we like to do.
Tap.
But it's all about like points of pressure. Jiu-jitsu is about real like safely applying a hold so that you could tap. That's called a submission. In catch wrestling, it's called hooks. We don't apply a submission to get the tap. We apply a submission to try and rip it off. But that's why catch wrestling is not popular at all. Like, you can't really police that sort of thing in competition. That's why you never see catch wrestling comps anywhere, because it's too like brutal. It's not nice. Jiu-jitsu's nice. It's calm. It's disciplined. You could go there just if you want to roll after work. Catch wrestling's kind of
So it's something
intense.
that you feel like you could do a little bit more recreactionally?
Jiu-jitsu?
BJJ?
Yeah, of course.
Compared to catch wrestling?
Yeah, catch is like the psychos like me with the big wide eyes. So, and you've seen like,
Yeah, I'll roll with you, bro.
Yeah. But then like, I have to try, and when I go to jiu-jitsu classes, I have to try and like restrict myself because it's not the same thing.
It's probably a little bit like meditation for you in a way.
Yeah, kind of. I get annoyed a lot just because like, especially when you put the gi in, that takes away all of your Greco. Because you can have an underhook and then they'll just grab your wrist and you're like, your sleeve.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I don't know what to do now.
Yeah.
It's like wrestling in a full body medieval armor for me.
Yeah.
But there's some things like a shin ride. You never do.
But there's obviously like no gi BJJ.
Yeah. So that's
something like that you're
right.
probably really good at, right?
Kind of. I get there's still no slams allowed.
Oh, true.
You have to like controlled put it down.
Right.
The thing that I really
So it takes
hate,
away a lot of your components of
like
wrestling.
majority
Your
of my
strong
components.
Yeah.
So I'm all like, I'm kind of lazy. I just wait for that one big throw.
Yeah.
But even in my first jiu-jitsu comps, I got like deducted points for slamming.
Yep.
It was just my habits. But the thing that I hate most, and I'll say this openly, is when we're practicing just rolling, and we're going for a wrestling double leg. So wrestling, you have to lift them above 180 in order to get the big 5-point slam. So I lift them up, but I put them down nicely so I don't slam them. And then they try and throw on a guillotine. I'm like, I'm trying to help you out by not slamming you, but you.
Yeah.
And they always get the wrestlers. I think Kai brother, I love you, but we're all you got caught with the guillotine. But that's high level stuff, man.
Yeah.
But wrestlers were always like, we shoot like head up, air into the guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're very prone to guillotines as well.
Right. So you are susceptible to that.
Yeah,
That would be like your Achilles heel.
Ooh, the Achilles is the Achilles.
The Achilles, but yeah.
But no, that's definitely. I think. So you mentioned the triangle. The triangle is what I've been caught with most during comps.
Yeah.
But my last actual grappling comp was the last grappling comp before they took it out of the FILA rules.
Okay.
So now it's United World Wrestling. They make all the rules for amateur competition. but I was in the last competition that I just won before they took it out, so I'm real lucky they had it. So it wasn't jiu-jitsu rules, it was grappling rules. So
I see.
More, you're allowed to slam, you're allowed to do the stuff that I like. So,
Awesome.
jiu-jitsu a lot more control.
So let's say, for example, there's someone that's, they're a younger person, they're looking up to you, they're seeing what you're doing, they want to get started in wrestling, but they've never done it before.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for those people?
Just get a start, bro. It doesn't matter where you are. Like I said, look, we've got students now that haven't trained anything before.
Yep.
One guy would train soccer. Soccer and grappling is completely different to each other.
Totally.
But it's all about the first step. Like the journey of 1,000 miles begins with about a single step. Everybody hears that one, but like me, all I needed to do was go to Dilworth and start training. But it's all about the intent. Everybody on here is always about intent. And if you just one little change every day, one little incremental step, you're gonna get better. Like if you just do that for 10 days, you're gonna be like 10% better than you were before. And that's comes back to the Japanese thing as well. It's all just incremental progression. Just get a start.
Just get it started. Okay, go to Warrior Wrestling.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry.
Aaron will look after you.
There's like, come through. We do a lot of squats though. So.
So what I wanted to ask, you've had a lot of fights. You've had a lot of matches in wrestling. Are there any particular matches that really like kind of stand out to you that you look back on and you're like, man, that was just a spectacular moment? Like I know you've shown me a few videos and stuff, but are there any in particular that are just particularly memorable?
For me, it's in Japan it's called the strong style sort of division, so it's open weight division. That's what I like. So we could verse heavyweights, we could verse like 70 kilogram dudes. The one match that I really liked that sort of like got me international recognition was I think 2017. 2018 against Ishii, Tomohiro Ishii. There was a part in the match where we both just dropped our hands and we were like, let's go, bro. Like we just looked at each other. We didn't say anything. We were just like, slap for slap, just like strong, just waiting, see who's going to give out first sort of thing. And it was just like, I lost the match. By that, like sort of told the crowd, I told the fans, I told the world that I'm here, like I'm finally here in the big leagues with the big dogs, sort of thing. And I didn't drop, man. I don't know if I've showed you. I could give it to you for the podcast,
you showed it to me, and I'm going to use that video. Don't
so
worry.
It's legit. So
you guys will see this on the intro, or if you already watched it, you will see it.
I was real rocked, and my head was just bouncing side to side because he was like open palming me to the chin. So, but it was my first big chance that I've ever had. So I wasn't going to drop, and I just remember fighting back. So that's what, just that whole fighting spirit. In Japan they call it tokon. It comes back to the samurai style, like fighting spirit days. But that's like the first time I felt it. And then I've heard the crowd yelling as well. At the start of the match, they're like, haha, this young Kiwi boy, this other guy's been wrestling for 20 years, he's going to kill you. But you're allowed open hand strikes, and then he gave me the first one, and I was like, yeah, let's go, boy, let's go, boss.
Yeah.
If you know the Mark Hunt vs. Ray Seffel,
yeah, I know that one.
It was sort of the same feeling as that, where they both just dropped their hands. That's actually what I was thinking of as
you're saying it.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, this sounds familiar.
Yeah, bro, he was one of the guys, like right at the start of my journey. When Fale took me to Japan, they were training here. He was training for Bigfoot, either Bigfoot or Kane. I can't remember which one. I think it was Bigfoot, the second fight. But he was training here. His camp was here at Netfoot. And I just happened to be, I knew he was there, so I signed up. Happened to be at the gym at the same time with them.
Just by fate.
Yeah, just by fate.
Yeah.
I saw them training.
Yeah.
Went in, so I start at 6 a.m. I know they come in at 7. So I was just on the trainer. Oh, sweet, they're here. Oh, hey, bro, good to see you, man. And I was there so many times that they just got annoyed and just told me to come train with them. So that's where I got started, legit. I'm not even lying about
that's
that.
Awesome,
yeah. But just training with those level guys sort of like give you the rush boost. To like, and like just like the whole resonate. If they resonate at a high level and you hang out with them, you're just naturally going to rise to their high level, you know. And he's a huge star in Japan. Like even before UFC, people don't know. Like he was world champion, Grand Prix, K1 Grand Prix.
K1 Grand Prix, yeah. Oof. Yeah, that was a huge accolade.
Yeah,
but like, and it's so interesting that at that time no one knew about it, right? You know, and like looking back at like a huge portion of the world would have seen that and just been like, holy smokes, this guy from New Zealand's amazing.
It's cool, Russians,
but no one would have known it.
Yeah, like Russians that I talked to, yeah,
Europeans, they all know.
But people back home didn't know until he went to
Holland,
UFC.
Obviously, you know. that area of the world,
Yeah.
they're like, wow.
Even Fale, like I started hanging out with him when he became Intercontinental Champion. And that's huge. That's like one of the second biggest championships in the world. And it was just a Tongan brother from Mangere that won it, like the same as Mark. But people still don't know because wrestling's not so big here. But with warrior wrestling, I think it's going to grow. Like my long-term goal is to grow the scene so that people can use wrestling as an outlet in New Zealand. Because right now it's real small. There's not many wrestlers at all. I think there's maybe 5 of us in the whole world from New Zealand.
Wow.
So we'll start. We've got to start. I mean, look at all the city kickboxing boys.
Yeah.
They started real small, but now they're kings of the world. So that's my goal for wrestling, to get to that level. Bring it up in New Zealand.
And so to give people here another pathway that they could potentially follow.
Exactly.
Rather than just being an All Black or now a UFC star, they could go down the wrestling route.
Exactly, man.
That's awesome, man.
So it was rugby, boxing, now MMA.
Yeah.
Why not add wrestling to that list of potential things to be able to do?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. When are you next in action? Tell us about that.
So first time since February, next Saturday, 24th of October.
Okay, so coming up soon.
Yeah, the Onehonga Showdown. It's the first I've used the word strong style before a lot during this podcast. So when I was talking about the match with Ishii, that's what strong style is. It's you're actually driving it in, you're actually competing for something. First strong style type show in New Zealand. New Japan came to New Zealand in 2016, but they haven't been back since. And obviously COVID's locked everybody out, so it's a good time to strike while the iron's hot. So ride this wave up.
So that's next Saturday?
Yep.
What's the location?
Onehonga, Jordan Rec.
Okay.
It's going to be a small show in terms of, maybe. I was telling you how worried I was before about too many people coming. Yeah. But it'll be the start of, like, we've been calling it, and the reporters and stuff have been calling it the start of the new age of wrestling in New Zealand. So I really want to try and get back to how it was in the 70s. It's huge, like almost as big as rugby back in the 70s. I don't know if your parents or uncles have talked about it.
Yeah, they told me about it. Yeah.
They used to sell out stadiums back then. Yeah. So I want New Zealand to get back to that level.
My auntie, she would always tell me about when The Rock came or something.
Yeah, when he was a kid, and his granddad was huge star. Yeah. Back in the day, the wrestling world would come to New Zealand because they knew this was the place where all the tough guys are from. Wow. So I want to recapture that and grow it again.
Rekindle that warrior spirit.
Sort of lost it.
Through the warrior way.
I mean, The Rock, if The Rock's granddad wasn't around in New Zealand, Peter Maivia, High Chief, Whanene, they call him, that's his title name. If he wasn't around, The Rock wouldn't have had his opportunity. So people don't realize that New Zealand was a hotbed before.
Wow.
Yeah, Pacific New Zealand wrestlers as well.
I've heard about this a lot, and I think it's awesome that you're trying to rekindle that, bro. So
trying,
yeah. You're on the right path. Your heart's in the right place.
I think the thing that's going to make it successful is there are people with international experience willing to come back. The last 20 years we haven't had that, so also hopefully try and get some of those Iranian boys over.
That'll make for a good matchup, eh? Yeah. So how can fans and people watching this follow your journey? What's the easiest way for them to do that?
Probably all social media, Henare NZ.
Henare.
Henare NZ.
Yep. Okay, I'll put the tag on for them so they can give you a follow. So that's the easiest way for them to follow you.
Yeah,
just do that.
Or NJPWWorld.
Okay.
.com.
Okay.
And that's all the live matches. So you can't really get many matches on YouTube, but all of that stuff is on the website.
Cool. And are there any shout outs or anything that you'd like to make? We're getting to the end of the show now.
The important ones, all the boys competing next week. First time, Onehonga Showdown. Bring your A game.
You heard it here.
This ain't WWE.
All right, bro, my man. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Easy.
I really appreciate it. I'm excited to see your progress and your journey.
Thank you.
As you continue onwards. So all the best, man.
Kopkunkrap.
Man. Kopkunkrap.
Cheers, bro.
Peace out, guys. Hey guys, Steve here. If you like the content, please don't forget to press like and subscribe to stay up to date with the most recent episodes. I'll see you guys on the next one.